setting up Clemson and LSU for a national championship game that this man is going to call after he calls the Rose Bowl between Oregon and Wisconsin later on this week. He's my buddy, Chris Fowler. How are you, Chris?
Couldn't be better, Rich. Happy holidays, Happy New Year. I'll paint the picture for you. I'm looking at the Rose Bowl field as they paint it.
Nice.
So they're adding an extra shade of vivid Oregon green to the end zone right now. But I get to end and begin every year in this beautiful place, which always fills me with gratitude. So
you know what, and obviously I feel a very special affinity for the Rose Bowl, being a Michigan guy, and I covered Bo Schembechler's last game in that building against USC, where Junior Seau, I thought there was 2 of them on the field that day. But there is nothing like the sunset during a Rose Bowl over those San Gabriel Mountains on the edge of that beautiful spot, Chris. There's nothing like it, man. Nothing.
There's the physical setting, absolutely. Everything that happens on this field is bigger because it happens at the Rose Bowl. It becomes a part of the history of the sport. But it's beyond the beautiful grass and the setting. It's the energy inside this place, which you feel, along with about 90,000 people, aren't we lucky to be here? That's what everybody feels. And when you put that many people together feeling that, you know, there's a kind of a collective cool energy that makes everything that happens here really vivid. Like, I have much stronger memories of things that have happened in this game compared to other games you see, and there's a power in the setting that contributes to that.
And then, of course, the national semifinal that was played there a couple of years ago between Oklahoma and Georgia, that you know, it was just dynamite. And I got to be honest with you, obviously this game did not go to overtime, but Clemson and Ohio State had a similar feel in the fact that you knew that you'd see a lot of these players on Sundays in the future, just the talent on that field. What was it like calling that game for you, Chris Fowler?
It was like a mini-series. It was more of a mini-series than a game. I mean, there were so many plot twists and turns, and it had a bloodbath feel to it. Because you mentioned the NFL. It felt like one of those wars of attrition you see where teams are battling in the playoffs, and whoever's got the most healthy bodies standing at the end might be the winner. Guys were going out of the game, getting treated, coming back in the game. A whole bunch of dudes on both sides were just digging really deep. Obviously, the plot twist included controversial calls, replays, another thing you see in your world of the NFL. Mm-hmm. So fans on Ohio State feel aggrieved, and that's kind of too bad that their takeaway was they got jobbed by the officials. But no, it's an absolute classic. You know, there were 3 dominant teams in the sport all season. All 3 of them played like it in the semifinals. LSU did their thing, as you said, and these 2 teams, it was a shame one side had to lose, because I think you get 2 championship-worthy teams that battled to the end.
So you mentioned those refereeing controversies. Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. Ryan Day told your colleague Tom Rinaldi after the game that he was angry. What do you think? Was it the targeting call, or it was the fumble recovery for a touchdown that got wiped out? Which one do you think?
I think all of them. I think you felt like there was a lot of crucial calls in the game, and not many of them, if any of them, went his way. Angry is putting it mildly. I mean, he was behaving himself. He was being restrained at the press conference. I think he was absolutely livid. And, you know, when you're livid, you point fingers and you have conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. And I get that. It's you know, he feels for his team, which was good enough to win the game and maybe good enough to win a championship. And it's so hard to get there. You get there 13-0. And for me, the targeting call was correct. Now, you might not like the rule. Right. I happen to think the player safety is pretty important, and the future of this sport at the pro, college, and youth level depends on better player safety. So you got to have punishment for targeting. The other call, I think, was incorrect. I think they made the right call in the field: catch, fumble, score. Now, people are saying, officials were telling us, no, it should never have even been ruled complete on the field. To me, caught the ball, made a couple steps, and if I hear one more time, made a football move, made a movement common to the game. Yes. What the hell is that? Does anybody know what that is? Well, isn't taking a step with the football in your hand pretty common to the game?
You know,
isn't running common to the game?
Hey, Chris, I'm with you. I mean, I at the professional football level heard about the tuck rule for so many years, and the number of times I would basically say when you are taking a football from a throwing motion and pulling it into your body, doesn't that indicate you no longer intend to throw it? So why are we calling it an incomplete pass? I mean, it is just the nature of our business in the football world, Chris. You know,
what does a football move mean? No one can tell me exactly what it is. Is it you strike the pose? I mean, what does that mean? He caught the ball. He took 2-3 steps,
yes, he
maybe
did.
3.5.
Yep.
The ball was knocked out of his hand, picked up, and is that indisputable video evidence that that's not what happened? That's supposed to be the standard. And you get a lot of double talk. I'm with the fans. I don't care who wins the game. I have no preference which side wins. I just call it like I see it, and I felt like that call, there was no way they're going to overturn that on the field. And it was a scoop and score that gave Ohio State the lead. Will Mike Clemson have won anyway? Of course. Can Ohio State blame the officials exclusively? Of course not. They made a million mistakes in that game. And I don't think officiating maybe was a decisive factor, but it was certainly frustrating. And that's the one thing that I wish weren't a big component to a game that great. It was that lingering controversy.
Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who's Trevor Lawrence? Tell me about the kid, now that you've been around him for 2 years.
Very quiet, very calm, amazing self-belief. Couldn't believe at 19 he did what he did last year to Alabama in that game. And I think it comes from, he's just a dude who has a deep faith, doesn't believe that his self-worth hangs in the balance every time he throws a football. So I think from that comes a lot of confidence. I mean, obviously, the toughness thing, Rich, was what was on display the other night. He had one of his worst games in terms of passing productivity, but he just took the team on his back. The 67-yard touchdown gallop is a play I'll never forget. The times he got hit, including the targeting on Wade, where it looked like he might be out for the count. I mean, it looked like, like Tyson Fury had hit him. He was laying on his back, only missed a play, came back in and continued to run the ball and take punishment, man. That was a big part of their game plan. But if you're gonna make that a part of your game plan, your quarterback's going to get hit a lot. And Ohio State was violent. They were violent in hitting, and except for Wade's hit in a legal way. Mm-hmm. And he stood in there and did it. Now, I can't wait to see him versus Burrow in the championship, because you get two sort of different styles of quarterback, but guys who are playing at the top level who haven't lost. And, it's like, who do you trust more? Who's going to execute more in a championship moment? For me, it's just hard to bet against Trevor Lawrence based on what he's done so far.
Well, I mean,
his career.
You segued me, Chris Fowler, to the next subject. I mean, that gallop that you referred to by Lawrence, I tweeted at the time that it might cause half the NFL to tank 2020 for the 2021 draft, and the national championship may just be the quarterbacks who are going to be chosen first overall in the next 2 NFL drafts. And in terms of Burrow, Chris, can you compare him to anybody else that you've witnessed, called games, or covered in any way, shape, or form from back in the day with College Game Day, who went from, serviceable, or that, which is obviously negatively connoted, or good, to all-time, haven't seen this type of performance in 1 year? Chris, is there any comparison from what we've seen out of Burrow?
No, I don't think to go from. I mean, he really sort of came alive at the end of last year, but no one expected this kind of a season. I think the mental component was always there. He's always a really bright dude. And that's what struck LSU with the first interview they had with him when he was going to transfer from Ohio State. Is this guy might be the smartest football mind in the room, and it was including the LSU coaches. And I think they were blown away by that part of it. He prepares like a pro already. He takes one class, I think. He's already graduated, so he spends all his time in a football complex kind of walking around. And when he comes into his meetings at the beginning of the week, he's got game plan ideas already from watching tape on his own. That's just not college stuff, Rich. That's NFL veteran stuff, and maybe a lot of guys who've been in the league for a lot of years can't do that. So it begins with that. And then, Joe Brady, Saints fans will know what he did at that level. I think it's a perfect marriage of play caller, scheme, quarterback, and let's not forget he's surrounded by a bunch of playmakers and an offensive line that basically blocks with a 5-man protection a lot, and they can do that because he gets the ball out so fast. His release is quick. I'll give you a scouting report that is interesting. I watched him field level for the first time in Atlanta against Georgia, and I was just on the fan watching the game, and it's a unique perspective because you can see things differently than you can from the press box, and certainly it's a lot different than watching on TV. But what struck me is how athletic he is. He's almost balletic in the pocket in escaping. He's sudden. He can crease defenses faster than you think, straight ahead speed. The throwing of the ball, he's not the most beautiful passer, and he actually thought he threw the ball poorly. He did. He's a pretty high grader of himself. It doesn't spin like Tua. It doesn't come out of his hand tight like a lot of guys who throw it on Sunday. He'll throw a wobbly pass now and then. incredibly accurate. His sense of timing, his decision making is stellar, and he's capable of throwing a lot of beautiful passes. It just doesn't come out of his hand flawlessly every time, like we see with some of these guys. But that doesn't matter because he's so good in so many areas.
Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. In the couple minutes I have left with you, Chris, I'm going to take a moment for myself and ask you some advice and my friendship with you based on a colleague of ours, Mike Tirico. So you know Mike, high class individual, like A+. Okay, he texted me and a group of other of our colleagues during my show Sunday Game Day morning yesterday. He texted me and Kurt Menefee, James Brown, Sam Ponder, and Carissa Thompson to tell all of us who host NFL pregame shows, great job. Love watching you all year. We'll see you down the road to the Super Bowl. Have a great final week of shows. Like typical Mike Tirico, A+.
Wow.
Awesome, high-class material. And you've known Mike for longer than I have. So Kurt Menefee responds and says, hey, great stuff. And right back at you, James Brown. His usual A+ first-class response as well. Sam Ponder said, hey, thank you, appreciate it, see you all in Florida soon. I came up with a response here, Chris, and I asked Kurt Warner, who's one of the nicest people I know, should I send it? He said yes. Here's what I sent in response. I wrote back, sorry, since I'm the only one here hosting a 4-hour show, I'm just seeing this.
He laughed.
I think that captures perfectly the generosity of spirit you might have in mind there.
Well, then I did follow up. Hold on.
I did on the day there, and
I did follow up saying
where there's warmth and generosity, you see pettiness. That's okay. I mean, that's fine.
No, I did follow up saying Happy New Year to everybody on this chain. We'll see you at the Super Bowl. Great season. And then nobody responded. Chris, do you think I've got an issue here? What do you think?
I think you made enemies. I think you've instantly made enemies in business, and you might be scorned, and you'll never be in another group text again. So I hope you're happy with yourself, Rich.
Kurt said send it. I mean, Kurt is, like, seriously the nicest person on the planet. He's like, send it. He found it funny.
I find it funny, too. I think, listen, how many people can say, Happy New Year, great to know you. I mean, you chose to go the other direction because you didn't have the first bite of the apple, but that's okay. I think it's actually, in all seriousness, man, I think it's pretty cool that he did that. And
no doubt.
There's hopefully a little bit more of that in the business. I think that Mike and I sent texts, and Joe Tess and Sean McDonough and Joe Davis at Fox. It's really nice to have your peers say, hey, you did a good job. It means 100 times more than a fan, what a fan says, positive or negative. And when your peers recognize that and aren't afraid to express it, I think thanks for telling me that. That it made my day to hear that Mike did that.
You know what?
Despite your sophomoric response, I think it was a nice gesture.
I was looking for moral support here, and it just makes me feel worse, Chris. I'll be honest with you. But
I said it was funny.
Okay,
I did say it was funny.
Thanks for the call, Chris. By the way, great, and I'll say it too. And this, I mean, I just love listening to you, man. You and Herb Street were on it. I thought Herb Street's instant analysis of the final interception and what happened was so spot on, and made something totally confusing crystal clear as to why it happened. And the pictures that followed it up, I mean, that's just one small part of how fantastic that Fiesta Bowl broadcast was, Chris. Really, just terrific.
Imagine being in his spot, too, Rich. Last thing I'll leave you with. He played at Ohio State, captain, so is his dad. He feels deeply about the school, does a great job being objective. His twin sons are playing for Clemson. I said, you're never in your life going to have a night like this in your family. Forget doing a broadcast and trying to do your usual unbiased job. His kids are in uniform. Now, they're not playing, but they're going to get a championship ring if Clemson wins. And they've already got 2 rings from the season in their first year playing Ohio State for a spot in the championship game. Imagine being him. I mean, he was vibrating at a little higher frequency that night, but did an awesome job, as he always does.
It was great. And I look forward to seeing you on the Rose Bowl broadcast and then obviously the national championship game, the Australian Open and beyond. Say hello to Jennifer for me, will you please?
Yes, attitude. Hopefully we'll talk before then, but I appreciate that. Happy New Year to you.
Right back at you, Chris Fowler, right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.